Petroleum Hub Development Corporation. And for many of you, once we discovered oil, it was supposed to help basically deal with all our problems. The expectations were very high. And so we had bodies in place, civil society organizations in place, just to ensure that we manage the oil resources effectively. We have been reminded consistently of the Dutch disease, and we had been informed of how we could go the Norwegian way. Lots of things, lots of conversations. So in the era of the previous administration, I remember very well the former Deputy Energy Minister, Joseph Kujo, particularly saying his greatest achievement would be leading the establishment of the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation. Well, today we're joined by its CEO for us to understand. So it's one thing establishing an entity, it's another ensuring that the entity is able to develop, to actually deliver on its objectives, goals, and targets. Dr. Aubynn, good morning once again, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and let me say good morning to your cherished listeners, and if people are viewers as well. I must quickly say that, and I don't know whether you know it or not, your father, Mr. Amwa, was one of my distinguished formators in life. Two people, incidentally, they all became Amwas.
Oh, okay.
They, when I talk about formators in my personal life, your father was one of them. He taught me in primary school, Form 1. Those days, the Saito Form 1, Takwa Catholic Boys School. I think he had come out as a young teacher, and he were the first class. And he was just photographer par excellence at his time. He would take photographs of us every term end, and really, my condolences. Sorry for saying this, but
that's okay. I think I had heard stories of you and all the young ones that he taught in those days. That should be around 1973.
I think 73, 74.
Yes.
I went to Form 1 75 because secondary to Form 1 75 from his hands.
Yes. I think I should look for the pictures he took of you.
Yes, very beautiful one. My dress was torn. You will see that. And you see the way I stood. See, me too, I know life's more.
Okay, thank you very much. So tell us, Petroleum Development Hub. What is, objectives are, what is it that you've been set up to achieve? Let's start from there before we get into what you're doing now and how you intend to achieve those goals that have been set for you.
Right, thanks. I think in the thinking of the state, which was led by the previous administration, we need to move away from the crude exploitation of our natural resources, mineral resources, and even the hydrocarbons and all that. So the idea was to add value. So the hub was to create an integrated petrochemical industry complex in a particular location that has been carefully chosen to build a complex there and to create a situation of Rotterdam in Jomoro. So the whole idea was to add value, to industrialize through our hydrocarbons, set up jetties, and these jetties will be the kind of harbors that will take vessels that come to take product from there, set up refineries, and in the view of the hub, there will be 3 refineries refining a certain capacity of oil. The oil must not necessarily come from Ghana. It could come from anywhere. I always say that if you go to Switzerland, they don't produce gold there, but you have gold refineries there. So they get the gold from elsewhere to refine. It's a different business of its own. And then the refineries, you also want to set up petroleum tank of oil tanks, and then petrochemical plants, 5 of them, to be established at the hub. So you could see that the whole spectrum of getting the crude oil to the end user would be found there in a particular hub, in the hub. So that is really the idea behind the hub. And this hub is not just machines that are turning out raw materials. It's a whole township. It's a whole industrial complex. And if you look at the image that I have seen myself, we're looking at quaternal hospitals, we're looking at hotels. And when I talk about quaternal hospitals, the hospital engineers will tell you that they're a top-notch hospital.
Like UGMC level?
Yes, that level. We're also looking at hotels that befit the hub. So I mentioned Rotterdam. You know, that's just the image. If you have been to Rotterdam before, you see the image. And I think the planners also had an image of Rotterdam or Las Palmas in mind. So that's the kind of thing. Now, fortunately, President Mahama had already said that anything that was started by the previous government, that he found to be good for the nation, he will continue. And this is part of the areas that the president has emphasized, that we try to actually bring that to reality. The previous government crystallized the idea. They started acquiring the land and all that, but a few things were not completed. Obviously, they are not around to have completed it. And so, since the present president, President Mahama, really want industrialization. In fact, industrialization is one of his key dreams for Ghana. We thought that was something we need to focus on and get it out.
Great. So I see the Act establishing the Corporation, Act 1053.
1053. Act. The lawyers will start with the year.
Yes.
And then the Act itself.
Yes. 2020.
Yes.
Act 1053.
Yes.
Functions include to plan and implement strategies for the development of the hub in the country, undertake preparatory works for the promotion and development of the hub, facilitate the provision of basic utilities for companies and service providers for the development of the hub, as well as assisting those that seek to operate in the hub. So I get your functions. You've indicated clearly that it's a hub, and entities are going to come in there.
Yeah.
And your responsibility per Section 3 is to undertake preparatory work for the promotion and development of the hub. Have you done that?
Well, that's exactly what we're doing. It started even before me, and part of the preparatory work was to acquire the land, and the land has, in theory, been acquired. There is 20,000 acre land that has been earmarked for the project. Some negotiations have gone on, some consultations and engagements have gone on. So it's a preparatory work.
Have you paid for the land? Do you have the land? Is it yours? Can you use it?
Okay. I would say no, not yet. Because, our laws allow for government to use its, in quote, muscles to acquire land anywhere in Ghana for the benefit of Ghanaians. If government found out that this project is so good and that it will benefit Ghanaians, it could use the law to acquire the piece of land. And that is what the government started doing. But that acquisition doesn't become complete until you have paid or demonstrated your ability to pay compensation. Because you don't just go and take the land, you take, but you pay compensation. That has not been done, unfortunately. I recall that just, I think in November or October, thereabout, forgotten a particular month, when the tape for the project was cut by His Excellency, the former president. He said that, and I like quoting part of what he said. He said, on this note, I have instructed my finance minister to release 200 million Ghana cedis to commence the payment of compensation. Unfortunately, that was not done, and I don't know whose fault was it, whether the president did not have information about what was available, or the minister then did not follow the instructions of the president. That has not been done. So that is a big challenge, and that is what His Excellency the President has tasked us to find any way, means possible to begin the compensation of a payment of the compensation due them. The entire amount that will be required is about 1.2 billion Ghana cedis. That will be paid in tranches, I think in 4 tranches. And so if we started with 300 million or 20 million dollars, we'll be fine. So we are close to securing the 300 million Ghana cedis to start compensation. So we haven't yet settled.
This 1.2 billion cedis, what will it be used for specifically?
For the entire acquisition process. You pay compensation for people whose farms and properties are there. You pay compensation for the land itself. And then also there are some people who may have to be resettled. Some people would have to be moved from where they are to other places, and so all these will take care of that. There should also be initial preparation of the land. You just don't prepare, you just don't acquire the land. You need to service it in a way that investors who come will not come to see ordinary crude.
So this
land.
1.2 includes the land lease,
yes,
resettlement,
yes,
payment for property on the land, including farms,
precisely,
and then provision of infrastructure. Is that it? Because you just said servicing. And
yes,
servicing is infrastructure.
That's right. That's correct.
So roads, electricity access,
that's right,
drainage improvement,
that's right,
all that is part of this 1.2 billion
right,
Ghana
that's
cedis.
right. That's right.
Now, what's the plan for the land? When government acquires this land, and later Kojo and Winston Petroleum Holdings wants to invest in the space, would you sublease the land to us at a fee, or you're going to use this land as a form of subsidy so that businesses want land, government has the land, so you come take land and invest in this particular area to enable economic activity? How are you going to approach it?
We are looking at various models. In fact, we are open to various models. You know that in Ghana, we don't, apart from government, you don't lease land beyond 99 years if you're Ghanaian, and that's for Ghanaians. And then for foreigners, you don't lease land beyond 50 years. So if Winston, who is from Papua New Guinea, not a Ghanaian, want to do that, there is always going to be that issue. Fortunately, the program is such that once you have your 50-year lease, government will subsequently renew the lease to you, 50, 30, and things like that. There are various models that we are open to. We are open to build, operate, and transfer. We are open to build, operate, and own, depending on whether government decides to take equity in the project. It's not everything that government will be interested to take equity, but if it becomes necessary for government to take equity, then you may have the build, operate, and own, because government will be owners as well of that. And so these models are available for negotiations. If you come and we sit down with you, we'll look at whether government should use land as an equity, or we make the land to you on lease.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with this investment, how much are we looking at getting back annually from the Petroleum Hub Development Company, and when do we foresee this hub really taking off with activity that gives back to the economy?
I tell you, I see a game-changing project in this petroleum hub, because at the completion of the hub, the expectation is that about close to 800,000 jobs would have been created.
800,000 jobs.
I have been joking that the only single business in Ghana that can compete with that will be maybe Galamsey. But please don't say it anywhere, because everybody's doing it. So it's like everybody can work there. But I mean, joke aside, it's going to create about almost 800,000 jobs, which is big. It's going to boost the economy by about 70% or so. And obviously, government is going to be making, raising revenues out of that. Now, I told you that there are a lot of ancillary activities, ancillary services that will be available, and they will operate as regular businesses that will make taxes available to government. But I must say that this is also operating on, or it's going to operate on the free zones model as well, which means that if you were a refinery company, if you own a refinery, you would have to export about 70% of your product and keep 30% for our consumption. So a lot of activities are likely to come up if things work.
Kojo, there are 800,000 jobs. If you look at the current population of the Western region, we are looking at almost 40% of the population of the Western region. 800,000 jobs. That would also mean a lot of housing and a lot of infrastructure. But over to you, Kojo.
Yeah. So 20,000 acres, is that right?
Yes.
Why 20,000 acres? I ask this because I'm looking at the size of our petroleum sector, right, and the amount of oil we expect to bring out of the sea there. There are some who estimate that with 5,000 acres, we could provide all the facilities needed to service that amount of oil. Why 20,000? Can you give us a breakdown of what went into the calculation of how much land is being acquired for this project?
Okay. The 20,000 acres was carefully chosen. It is true that the size of the hub that we are envisaging could actually, we need about roughly 8,000, 9,000 to do that. However, we have about 8,000 of the piece of land which contain eco-sensitive resources there. We have lagoons, we have wetlands and all that. I think closely 8,000 acres. Now, if the hub left it there without protection, so the 8,000 will not be used at all. It will just be protected. And the hub would have to take responsibility of its protection. Otherwise, can you imagine if the hub said, okay, that 7,000 that maybe front the hub, 7,000 acres of eco-sensitive land that fronts the land will be left, and hopefully there's no gold there, and there were gold there. You see how people will just go in there and do whatever they want to do. So the idea,
I mean, that hasn't happened yet. Why does government think it will?
Yeah, the idea is to protect. I mean, it's not about the activity that is going to happen there, but that place has to be protected. Government will have to protect it anyway. So it is just that the hub has taken the responsibility because of contiguity. We're very close to it. They are it's just part of the land. And they could have said, oh, as for the 7,000, 8,000, we don't need it. And that might be less costly. However, it would also mean that opening the place up for anything, even though government would have to protect it anyway. So huge part of it is for protection. And then it's also a typical technical requirement that a hub would have to have a buffer. So if you have about 2,000 acres of buffer, so the land is really not needlessly acquired because you don't want to pay more for your business. But as a state-led activity, it will be business-led, private sector-led in terms of its own construction. But for it being run generally, the state has a responsibility to protect some of the things that it ought to protect.
Right.
So that is the reason for it.
Okay. Well, let's hope the state protects it better than we've protected our forest reserves so far. Now, I have to ask you this. We've seen private attempts to build a petroleum city, if you will, with the same concept that, they wanted a place of, infrastructural convenience for the petroleum sector, so the private people could come and invest, and there'd be hotels, and there would be, all sorts of facilities for the benefit of the petroleum sector. I think Nana Kwame Bediako started a project like that, over a decade ago. Nothing came of it. Have there been sufficient feasibility studies to determine that there will indeed be an appetite for investment, so that this project will not end up never getting off the blocks?
Right. I think that there has been enough of work done in the area. A lot of work, feasibility studies done, and in fact, investors showing interest. I came to meet an MOU of about $12 billion between a consortium of investors and Ghana. So that appetite is there. You can see the people, even since I came, I've been receiving calls, I've been receiving requests to come and meet with my office and all that. So the desire is there. I think what you need is a drive or a driver. We need that because at the moment you have the hub operating as a government private sector. Yes, the hub is operating as a government private sector. So we use that image of government and also operating with a sense of agency, a private sector agency, to encourage people to come and take advantage of what promises to be a game-changing project. So we're very hopeful that it's the way to go. The kind of impact on the economy will be great. A lot of jobs to be created. I am keen to seeing our Ghanaian entrepreneurs showing interest so that not only in the ancillary works like building the roads and settlement, of course that's a huge area of investment, but also maybe coming together to build refineries or build a petrochemical plant for the production of fertilizer or plastics or whatever that has to be produced. But before I even go forward, the hub works under the Ministry of Energy, and now the President Mahama has added green transition. Mm-hmm. So it might sound contradictory if we are working on fossil at this time. First of all, fossil is not leaving us anywhere soon, anytime soon. The American president said drill baby drill, so it means that fossil is not leaving us anytime soon. But also we are carefully doing things that will also complement the need for green transition. For instance, in the designs that we have, a lot of the ancillary project will use solar or green energy. And exactly the reason why we are also protecting the environment, the eco-sensitive areas. So it's a blend. It's a blend of the green transition and where we are in terms of the use of fossil fuel.
Right. Dr. Aubynn, you sound hopeful that this project will not go the way of previous attempts. But have you studied the previous attempts to understand why they failed so as to mitigate those outcomes in our case?
You see, I'm a program of hope, so you must always be hopeful. Otherwise, you won't be driven by anything. Yes, we have some understanding. The private one that started, I think it was driven by someone who really had a drive. But this one has a government backing. This one has a government acquiring land where once we have access to a clean title to land, an investor will not come fearing that he would have litigations on land. Investors are very coward. They will send their investment into places that they are comfortable with. So I think this provides a very strong bulwark for it to go on. And also the determination and excitement. It is not a side activity. It is a main activity, and therefore that drives our hope that inshallah it will come to force.
Interesting. So, Doc, what numbers are we looking at when it comes to refining petroleum in Ghana? Because I know that's one of the key things that the Petroleum Hub wants to do. What's the target?
Yes. We are looking at various, I think the 3 refineries, they're going to produce about 300,000 barrels
per day.
So
each refinery
day. Yes.
is going to produce 300,000.
So we are looking at
900,000
a day.
Our current crude oil production is less than 200,000 barrels per day. And we know that the businesses drilling oil within our waters also have contractual agreements. So what strategy are we going to use to ensure that we get the crude to supply these places to enable us to produce? I'm asking this because the leading exporters of crude, for example, there's Saudi Arabia, there's United States, there's Russia. Just next door in Nigeria, Dangote has a 600,000 barrel per day crude refinery facility. What really is the strategy if we put in place this infrastructure? Are we putting in the work to ensure we get the raw material to process here, to keep the plants running?
Okay, let me just clarify that government is not putting up the refineries.
Yes.
So we have done some feasibility studies to know that it is feasible to do that here. But it will be for the private entities who want to do that and who would be satisfied that building a refinery will be their money's worth. Now, the advantage Ghana has is its closeness to everywhere. Africa is discovering a lot of fossil fuels. We are discovering a lot of hydrocarbons. Not too long ago, Namibia discovered some significant quantity of oil. Now, the idea is not to only obligate our internal production, but also to make it possible for people to bring crude from anywhere to refine. It's like the earlier example I gave. I spoke about the fact that Switzerland doesn't produce gold, yet Switzerland refines a lot of gold. So you create that situation for people to come and do that. And when it comes to the petrochemical plants, I mean, you can use a product from various sources to come and process. Fortunately, I think government is building additional gas processing plants, which means that product from gas would also be available in quantities that can be used for the petrochemical plants. So we and EFTA, fortunately, we are in a very fortunate situation. African free trade,
continental
free trade area allows for this free movement of goods and services. So moving crude from Namibia will not be an issue, especially when they know that they can get it refined here and they can get it back at almost no export cost apart from the cost of transportation. So the opportunities are there, and Ghana is close to anywhere. I mean, Europe,
center of the world.
Yeah. So we have that advantage that we haven't used. Politically, we are relatively stable. Getting to elections time, we make noise. Once the dust settles, we are all back to business. In terms of quality of human beings, relatively, I mean, compared to our neighbors around, we brag that we have good quality human beings. So we do have, and even infrastructure. Our infrastructure is not that much, but if you compare to some other areas, you see that we have gone ahead. Power, for example, the reach of electricity in Ghana is probably second to only this South Africa also in Africa.
So, Doc, we'll go for a break. When we return from the break, I need you to also tell us, do you have any commitment from any private sector institutions who are ready to invest in the hub now? Have you signed any MOUs? Have any institutions given you the assurance that if we are investing 1.2 billion as a state, they're also ready to come and invest immediately, so that we don't lock up those funds for a certain period and get the returns immediately?
Yeah, we also want to explore what will happen to the existing value chain. Currently, petroleum products are taken out of this country. Crude is taken out of this country and processed elsewhere. What happens to those businesses? Are we now going to be competing with them? What happens to the value chain? This and more when we return. Stay with us. To Tony Aubynn, and of course he is the CEO of the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation. Is an ambitious project set to be put in place in the Jomoro area, and the idea is to serve our petroleum sector with all the facilities required to move and improve our crude as it comes out of the sea. Okay, Dr. Aubynn, before the break, we were learning a lot about this project and how it will unfold. I'm curious about how it will affect the existing value chain. Currently, the companies that mine, drill for oil in Ghana, they take their product elsewhere for it to be processed. If we're going to set up facilities for that to happen here, how does that affect the value chain, and will some people find themselves out of business?
Well, I don't think people will find themselves out of business. This opportunity will be there for, other people to use. So it's kind of a competition in a way. I tell you, if it were so clear, so easy for people to refine their oils here in Ghana, I'm sure they would have done that, because business people, apart from those who have previous marketing agreement and all that, they would have done that, because you look at costs, you look at all the benefit that will come from processing your oil in Ghana. I am sure that government, once we move on, government is likely to come up with a condition that part of our oil, the ones drilled in Ghana, would have to be processed at the hub, because that doesn't take anything from you. If you have your oil processed, after that you can take it to wherever you want to take it to. So that is possible. And also the fact that we will have crude from elsewhere, it create the opportunity for other businesses to work. I mean, if you would go out, whoever established a refinery would have to look for its crude. Even before we started having drilling for oil, we had a refinery. I think our refinery preceded our finding oil, in commercial quantity. So I think it will be a business that is underlain by competition, and people will look for the best, and then consumers will also benefit at the end of the day.
And I asked earlier, before we went for the break, whether we have any commitments from any anchor tenants and businesses now, and what the timelines are with deploying and executing the project.
Yes, I said from the very beginning that even with my arrival in the office, getting a lot of calls, people trying to understand what it is and showing serious interest. I came to meet a $12 billion MOU signed. MOUs are not agreements necessarily, so you can only nurture it. Fortunately, since I came, I've had the opportunity to talk to at least some of the people forming the consortium to be anchor the investors, and they still maintain significant interest in that. In fact, they think we are actually delaying because and the real constraint is the payment of compensation to acquire a clean title to the land. Because it is only when we have a clean title to the land that investors will be confident. And in fact, part of the MOU is also anchored on government getting title to the land. We are even talking to them if they can, out of their 12 billion, provide part to try and start paying the compensation as government works on other sources, and ourselves also working for other sources. Look, we are even talking to banks, and we think these are businesses that our local banks can, 300 million Ghana cedis. We believe that our local banks, and I've had some conversation with some of them, they're looking very positive, coming together, providing the initial funding, and then opening up the space for the investors to come in.
Now, Dr. Aubynn, in the face of these financial challenges in getting the funding to get a clean title, can we consider making the landowners equity partners of the Petroleum Hub Development Corporation, where they are not taking any upfront funds now, or we give them something small, and whenever there's any partner that comes in, any investor, you have the master plan. So you allocate the land for that particular investor. The investor possibly makes some payment, or whatever arrangement we have would make payments specifically for that, so that we see incremental development in the space.
No, this is a model that we are looking at very carefully. We believe that one option would be pay, get everything, and then it's in your hands. But the other is exactly what you have described. But first, we need to pay compensation for those who have properties on the land. If you have a farm, it has to be paid for. If you have a house, that has to be moved. It has to be moved.
Exactly. So my point now is that if you have a commitment now, and company A, because I'm looking at your map, right? Company A or B is settling in zone A. Then you do your valuation of that particular area, if it's 100 acres, and then you find the funding to pay for that, so that you don't need that 1.2 billion or that 300 billion. You go incrementally.
Yes, but I think that will go well with the land, not with the properties, because then you are saying that don't develop your property. If you have a cocoa farm, don't develop it, because once an investor comes, you have to destroy the farm and all that. So it can go well with the land, the actual land itself. But for the properties that are owned, and they are not that much. We are better off getting, paying them and helping them to use whatever has to be paid properly. Because I've witnessed situations where people have received compensation for their farms, big ones, and then within a short period, because probably they could have been better managed, you see that the place has become, the people have become poor.
Dr. Aubynn, I like timelines for the simple fact that it enables accountability.
Yep.
So, 1.2 billion. You say, if we were to get, say, tranches of $300 million Ghana cedis, we're good to go. So, per your own estimation, when are we looking at getting the land preparation done for these businesses to start moving to the place to start their own projects?
Yes. In fact, the project should have started. Are we in the next quarter? This quarter, the project should have started in this first quarter, and we haven't because of the payment issues. So obviously, it would have to move to the second quarter, hopefully. So once that is done, once we have the 300 million from the anchor agreement that we are good to go.
Okay.
And there'll be rippling effect. The ones there's an anchor developer there, others are going to be there. And we have phased the whole project. These phases are not they are not exclusive phases. Phase 1 and phase 2 can go concurrently. So once we have actually started paying the compensation and demonstrating clean title to the land, we hope that there will be some action going on.
Let me just check.
And before you check something again, we are supposed to do this we are supposed to complete the place. I'm supposed to see Rotterdam by 2036. 2036. So by 2036, according
10 years.
According
to the plan, we would have, completed all this.
And these things you're talking about, I'm just trying to look for. I have the budget in my bag. There should just be. Let me look at whether your expenditure was captured in the budget.
No, it wasn't captured. It's for two reasons.
Okay.
One, I think there was no leadership at that time to make the point. Two, in fact, at a point there was this debate that the former president had instructed for 200 million to be released to begin payment. Was it actually released and not paid and all that? So I think that may have influenced the Minister of Finance not to have included it. But we don't need to actually have it from government. We can use private sector to do that. We can, in a way, we can securitize this, with some other things. But I need to be very quick in saying that this will not include sovereign guarantee.
Okay. Except that even if you want to, well, I mean, if you want to use state funds, you'd have to do some environments in there. But I have the budget, but since you say that is not captured in, we'll leave it at that. But also of importance to us, you know, if you've talked about, yes, you've said, yes, these MOUs are not binding agreements, because in the past, we have seen multiple MOUs
Yes.
that ended nowhere.
Of all sorts of programs.
We saw multiple companies that were signed on to the one district, one factory concept
SkyTrain, MOU.
and everything that
all sorts of
never
things.
materialized. For that person listening to us today, his question is, how sure? What is it that convinces you, and by extension us? Because if you are to convince us that by the 2036 that you talk about, we will see Rotterdam in Ghana.
Yes, I mean, I think it's first the belief, and then also the practical benefit of it. This is an economic activity that is consistent with the state's own dream. The President of the Republic, President Mahama, has a dream of industrializing the country, creating jobs and all that. So this is consistent with how Ghana want to go. So I have that hope. I think we need a drive, and you can be driven by hope. And I see that it's going to create jobs, it's going to boost the economy, and all that. So we need to get it done. We have to get it done, because it is not about somebody coming to do, coming to just build anything. It is something that is anchored on raw material, our raw material that we produce. It's also anchored on raw material that could be imported easily, especially given the increased discovery of hydrocarbons in Africa lately. And the opportunities are there. We don't have one in Africa. There's none. There's no hub like this in Africa. Why can't we dream and have it?
900,000 barrels. That will put us like top 5 in the world.
We will start.
Okay.
We will start.
Okay.
We will start. But that's the dream. I mean, that's the dream, to get 900,000 barrels.
And 800,000 jobs.
Yes.
We'll be monitoring.
But I don't forget that there will be a core job, a core set of jobs that will be created, and there will be ancillary jobs, some spread effect that would also be captured in this.
Well, fingers crossed that these plans come to fruition, and that the best indeed ends up coming from the West. Dr. Tony Aubynn, thank you very much for your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.